Thank you so much for having us here today. Welcome everybody to the Meta panel discussion. My name is Julia Mancy, as you just heard the introduction. I'm a litigation counsel in Meta's legal team. I've been a part of Meta now for 2 years. Celebrated my Metaversary last week. Really excited to be here today, personally as like a regular attendee at this conference. So yeah, very happy to be here. And so is Meta as a sponsor of the conference as we continue to build on our relationship with BYP. So the panel today, really excited to be moderating a discussion about the metaverse and how we can build and the importance of building representation and inclusivity in the metaverse. Before we get into that and I can introduce our fantastic panelists, we've just got a few housekeeping bits. So questions, really keen to hear from you all at the end. We will have time for a bit of Q&A. So if you can save your questions for the end, and if you are watching at home, please add your questions in the usual way that you have been doing throughout the day. So without further ado, it's time to meet our panelists. So I'm just going to ask you all to please introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about who you are and your time at Meta so far. Hannah, I'll come to you first.
Thank you, Julia. And hi, everyone. Really happy to be here. I'm such a fan of BYP and kind of everything that they do. So I'm Hannah Showmaid. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm the International Ethnicity DEI Recruiting Program Manager at Meta. What does that mean? Well, DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I partner with recruiting to find and hire underrepresented talent into our teams. I also co-lead our Black at EMEA, Europe, Middle East and Africa employee network group, and have been involved in kind of the network groups the whole time that I've been at Meta. I joined Meta 5 years ago as an executive assistant into our integrity team. So they protect the platform from harm, you know, impersonation, that kind of thing. So you have a better experience on the platform. And I kind of realized my passion for DEI about, well, I've always had passion for it, but in the work sense, moved over into the DEI space sort of kind of like 2 years in. I am from Southeast London, and I currently live there. And yeah, just super happy to be here and answer your questions today. So thank you. Rosh, over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Also great to be here and amazing turnout as well. BYP is does some incredible work, so really proud to be here. Yeah, Roshana, pronouns she, her, hers. I've been at Meta for 4 years now. I started in recruitment, which I did straight out of university. I did a politics degree, and as you can probably see, not really caught out for the politics ecosystem. So yeah, fell into recruitment and spent nearly 10 years doing that, and joined Meta as a recruiter 4 years ago. I made a career change, literally summer this year, so I'm 3 months into my new role as, it really rolls off the tongue, a global learning partner and then a whole bunch of other corporate words. But basically I help kind of, it's in the adult learning space, so I'm there to try and support and enable all of our sales and marketing and operations teams to learn the skills and functional knowledge that they need to be able to do their jobs more effectively. So kind of like a form of L&D for anyone who's familiar with that kind of ecosystem. Also Southeast London.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just buzzing to be here and looking forward to getting into some juicy conversations about the metaverse. And Simone, I will hand over to you.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Very glad to be here and to follow suite to such powerful talks of the day. I'm Simone. I'm an engineering manager at Meta. My pronouns are he and his. I'm happy to be here to tell you a bit more about the metaverse and about something that my team and the things that I do, I'm really passionate about. I'm an engineering manager, so I am coming from the tech and the IT part of the company. And what I do on my daily job, I support engineers, I support managers. Building part of what you will discover a bit more is the metaverse. More specifically, I help build part of the technology stack that builds the avatar system, which is how we want to help people represent themselves and identify themselves in the metaverse, which, as you can imagine, it's pretty a big responsibility. I would say pretty big deal, but more than anything, it's a big responsibility towards everybody who is enjoying and will enjoy our products. I've been in the company for 3 years, and I've been in management for a bit more than that. I am a big passionate about coaching, mentorship, leadership as well. So please, come find me after the talk if you want to talk about these things. And yeah, glad to talk with you a bit more about the metaverse.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Really excited for the conversation that's going to take place today, especially from such a diverse range of perspectives and roles within the company. So thank you so much for being here. So I think a really good place to start is to demystify this phrase or this word that we all keep saying and using, the metaverse. What is it? Why is it important? And how is it going to build value in our lives? So coming to you first, Simone, given your fantastic experience in this area, if it's even possible to do this in 1 or 2 sentences, can you please explain to us what is the metaverse?
I'll do my best. I think it's definitely a hyped word nowadays because everybody talks about it. We definitely talk about it a lot, but it's not a new word. And very few know, or maybe if you're a sci-fi passionate like me, you know, it's actually a word that's been first used in a book called Snow Crash in 1992. So if you're curious, please read it. It's very geeky and interesting. But to your point, metaverse is for me like it's identifying a set of things. Like why it's so difficult, I think, for people to understand what the metaverse is not like a physical, tangible thing that we can touch today. It's actually a collection of technologies and products that we build. I think to understand it, I kind of see it as the next steps of the internet, which means today, if you see connecting with your friends and your family, you may be using your phone, you may be using other devices that are, very socially accepted right now. But in the future, and it's not that far away future, it is already in today's technologies, it's already available. Pieces of technologies that allow you to be more immersive, be more present, to share experiences with people that are far away from you. Think about virtual reality sets or even augmented reality for what it's worth. And this is where we see the technology going. So for me, the metaverse, as defining it, is all the set of technologies that allow people to feel more present, to feel more immersed and close to each other. And it's coming. It's a big part of what's going to be the next years for all of us.
Thank you. That's, in 1 or 2 sentences, very impressive. But really interesting what you said. So I guess a follow-up question from that is if this is the exciting evolution of the internet and social connection that we're seeing, especially in an immersive way, I guess it's important for us to build it in a way that where people can show up authentically as themselves. So my next follow-up question is how do the concepts of representation and inclusivity work within the metaverse, and how is Meta approaching that?
You're right, it's crucial, right? If you can imagine, like the products that we build, the avatars are technologies that allow people to self-identify, to bring their true selves in the metaverse, in this very immersive experience. And it's crucial to get it right because we know all the problems of self-representation outside of social networks, outside of the metaverse. I think a few things that help inclusivity are, for instance, be aware, right, that people want to self-represent themselves in very different ways, and giving people options to do that, how they feel more appropriate, in a safe way, in a way that feels secure, in a way that feels representative. So very, talking technologies like I like to do, we are building technologies to allow people to represent themselves with a very high fidelity, reconstruction of yourself, or even, more of a cartoonified version, right? Maybe I don't mind that people look me like I am in real life, and I want maybe something different that I still feel relatable, and that is very important. I think another important part that is also very dear to me is that it's a technology change, right? And like all technologies, as you can probably know very well, they are expensive. And so being able to use something knowing that you have to spend a lot of money or you probably cannot afford it, it's not what we want. It's not what I want for the things that we build. And so being aware of the digital divide, the fact that not the same technology is available to everybody, and be able to open up products in different forms, in different fashions, to people that have different means, different people that have different interests, may not even want to spend, you know, thousands of pounds on a piece of hardware in order to connect with friends and family. I think it's very important, and it's one of the things that I remind our own teams practically on a daily basis.
That's really interesting to hear, and thank you so much for sharing your insights. I think one thing that I'm taking away from this is that we are all creating and navigating brand new spaces, right? This is like cutting edge technology, but what I'm also hearing is that there is lots of opportunity here, and if we can get it right, it could be fantastic and limitless. And so I'm just going to move on now to Roshana, if that's okay, just thinking about opportunities and leveraging off your experience so far, not only at Meta, but outside of Meta, but in recruitment and now adult learning. What opportunities do you think are available to these industries within the metaverse?
Thank you, and thank you. I find this whole conversation and topics and discussion around the metaverse, like, honestly, so fascinating, because I think back to kind of like our previous generations when, you know, the internet and web version 1.0 was suddenly a thing, and the kind of panic and confusion that would have existed amongst all the excitement. And I'll be honest, like, that's how I'm feeling about the whole metaverse thing. Meta, don't fire me. And I think that there are incredible opportunities that exist if we think about the metaverse and the way that it can open up kind of maybe more accessible and inclusive spaces in a way that our physical reality just hasn't quite got to. You know, even if I think about the shift during the pandemic, I was, in the recruitment team at Meta, and we had to move all of our in-person interviews suddenly overnight to virtual, and that was like a huge thing and incredible work on the back end. But it suddenly opened up this ability for people to be, you know, based wherever in the world, interviewing for jobs wherever in the world. And now we're seeing this move to more remote working and flexi working. So if you kind of add the layer of the VR and the metaverse on top of that, you know, interview processes could look really different, because you could be in this virtual reality where you're, as Simone said, represented by your avatar that's meant to be representing your true authentic self, and potentially in a more authentic way than you're able to do when you're sat on like a Zoom in your probably bedroom at your desk and it's just the head and shoulders. So I think there's an interactivity component that could really open up like amazing doors. You fast forward to kind of a new hire starting a company, and you think about that operating in the VR space. You know, you could have companies creating virtual office space that everyone's meeting in. So even for those full-time remote workers, they're still getting to embed and get a deeper understanding of the kind of company culture and the way of working. So there's definitely kind of huge opportunities. I think as well, like, and it's a big kind of point that I wanted to pick up on from Simone's point of view, is this digital divide, right? So we talk about accessibility and inclusivity, but we need to be thinking as well how to ensure that the communities that are actually going to be using these spaces are able to access it. So whether it is the cost of the hardware, when it is thinking about ways to integrate it more into mobile. So even if you don't have a headset, you can still kind of interact with your friends and family and don't get that kind of FOMO or missing out or anything. How are we thinking about the neurodiverse communities? Like, you know, VR to me is obviously quite sensory, visual, hearing. What about those who are hard of hearing or deaf or visually impaired or blind? Like, we need to be thinking about all of these kind of bigger conversations. Yes, there's huge opportunities. We're hearing about, you know, from an adult learning perspective, slightly outside of my world in tech, but pilots, surgeons using the VR and incredible technologies to be able to kind of practice before they take it to the physical world. But I think we do just need to, you know, just to anchor that point, it is crucial for the people behind the scenes who are building these technologies to be representative, because that's the only way that we're going to actually ensure that the metaverse itself is inclusive and accessible to everyone. But yeah, it's just some top line thoughts.
No, thank you so much. Just picking up on the digital divide, that you just spoke about, and I think you mentioned that Simone had mentioned this before. If you could just expand on that a little bit more, Simone, for the audience, I think it's a really interesting concept.
Yeah, I think it's important for me in a different perspective, right? To listen, right? To listen to who are we building products for. I think there is a lot of criticism, for instance, on the fact that Meta have taken the name, Meta, that, it's almost like claiming, oh, Meta is the metaverse. I think it's true that there is a lot of responsibility for us, but what we prioritize, right, as teams is not only to build what we think is the right thing, but what people trying to want. And we try to build the mechanism to listen more and more through definitely user research or feedback from our applications, but even feedback from people using our products, right? And so even talking on people on random chat conversations on a coffee shop or just walking down the street, people that use our products, people that know each other. I mean, probably I wouldn't talk about the metaverse with the strangers on the street, but you definitely can relate to the fact that building something that is going to be used, right, by millions and billions of people brings a lot of responsibility. And I just wanted to share as well that it's not just my own feeling, but a lot of people building products at Meta bring this sense of responsibility, and definitely we want to make things right. We want to build things that are safe and inclusive for everybody. And when those things don't happen, like, we are not perfect, right? We try to listen more, and sometimes also get angry with ourselves when things don't result as we wanted. And so I just wanted to say it because I think listening, like this act of being more open towards the people who are actually we are building products for, I think it's very crucial.
It's incredibly important to actively listen, right, and be open to listening to people with those lived experiences that are different to ours, to tell us about their experiences using this hardware and this new technology. And I think, as well as just listening, it's the people doing the listening that's really important, and having that representation and diversity of representation within the company, it feels like it's more important than ever. So coming over to you now, Hannah, and thinking about Meta and representation within Meta, really keen to hear your experiences of this from your time within the company in the various different roles that you've had, especially within diversity and recruitment, and your thoughts on Meta's efforts in what it's doing to, I guess, not only improve on the representation and inclusivity within the company.
Yeah, and I think there's different ways that you can approach this when you kind of think about all of the companies that are out there in the tech industry. For us at Meta, I think the main thing is kind of cognitive diversity, right? We have such different backgrounds and kind of people that are up on this stage. So it's about finding that talent and finding that cognitive diversity. Like prior to Meta, as I said, I was an executive assistant. I worked in the gaming and design industry. I studied costume production at uni. You would not think that I would be maybe in this role that I'm in now. So it's really about casting that wider net so that we can kind of find that talent and bring them in. We do that through various different programs. We're actually running a program at the moment that we did in partnership with BYP, which is a mentorship program. It's got about 20 people going through it at the moment in product marketing and legal. The purpose of the program is to essentially give underrepresented talent a high touch learning experience to really set them up for the best interview that they could give and understand the interview process at Meta or any other big tech company, right? It's not just about us bringing this talent in to Meta. Of course, we'd love you to come and work with us, but let's grow this market and this talent that we have. So I think that's kind of the first step, the find and how are you doing that. We have various other programs beyond the one that I've just mentioned that really do just kind of engage that underrepresented talent that we have. For me, and when you're asking about my experience and how that manifests once you're in the company, right? We can build everything, we can get the programs, we can find the talent, we can bring you in, but then what happens? So I think a lot of the times in companies you'll find that recruiting is a bit disjointed to diversity in what we call grow and keep, right? We have find, grow, keep. So I'm find. But if I'm not aligned to the Grow and Keep DEI teams, how does that work? Your transition from candidate to employee could be disastrous. And what you tend to find is then that people don't want to hang around and they're kind of off within 6 months. I can't be here. I'm the only one. I'm the other. No one's kind of looking out for me. So I think what I would love to be able to do and what I strive to do is to give people my experience that I had, which was I had a lot of, ally support from my managers through mentoring, coaching, sponsorship, and these are all programs that we have here at Meta that I've personally benefited from. And then also thinking about the resource groups that we have. So MRGs is what we call them, Meta Resource Groups. You might know them as like ERGs, Employee Network Groups. But essentially, there are some phenomenal strong Black women that I have met only because I joined Meta and only because I joined Black Hat. Julia, Roshana, definitely in that group, which is amazing to be up here with them today. But it's them giving you the empowerment, right? So it's this whole model that you need to give your employees, that you can have the coaching, you can have the mentoring, the sponsorship, but also let me create this really safe and brave space that you can just thrive in. So I think what I'm really pushing for and what I think is really important when we think about that find and grow and keep is that we're in constant conversation about what that experience is going to be. Because why would you want to hire a load of people into a company where they're going to have a really bad experience? It doesn't make any sense to me. So I think that's kind of our approach when we think about kind of the DEI teams. And I'm super thankful to really say firsthand that we do care about DEI, that it's not just lip service, and I work with some incredible people that really want to get that right. We do not get it right all of the time. I'm not going to sit up here and paint kind of that picture, but I think it's about just constantly evolving, constantly getting feedback through these programs that we're doing to make sure that we're adapting and really engaging with the talent in the right way. And I think the other piece is kind of just thinking about this mentorship, this coaching, right? I love the fact that you can be a manager or you can be an individual contributor at Meta. I know a lot of companies do have that. I really don't want to be a people manager. I love people, but I really want to stay focused, do the work, and I think that you obviously have impact in different ways. So I think it goes back to this cognitive diversity, right? I have ADHD, I have the worst anxiety sometimes. The thought of managing a team of 10 just completely petrifies me. Giving me a project and being able to focus on that and then really kind of building for other people excites me. I'm passionate about that. So when I talk about that model, it's about adapting that for every single person. And I feel super thankful that I get to not only build great programs, have all of you here kind of be engaged in those programs, hopefully, but make sure that you're having this incredible experience when you join the team and that you find your community, which is really great.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That was an incredible answer, Hannah. And I've got a +1 on finding your community, because when I joined Meta 2 years ago during the pandemic and lockdown, it was the Black community that immediately reached out, immediately set up all the virtual coffees, immediately got me meeting more and more people. And whichever company you're at, whenever you start a new job, it's always really important to find your people and build a network. And where better place to build your network than through the community where you feel you're most comfortable. And there is so much talent in our community to tap into. I lead the Black women community at Meta, which Hannah and Roshana are both members of. Really, really proud to say. And we have so much talent there, and we have such a great network that we all leverage through each other. So yeah, absolutely +1 to that, Hannah. Couldn't agree more.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
Sorry. Also the other thing that excites me is the people that I'm building these programs for, back to Roshana and Simone's point, are the people that are going to build the metaverse. And I think a really key thing to say, and I said this the other day in a meeting, is that we do build so much stuff in EMEA. The metaverse is not being built over in North America, in Silicon Valley. It's being built here in London. It's being built here in Tel Aviv, in Dublin. So being able to kind of shape what that looks like is determined by, what everyone said today, is the people that are in these roles. So it's really important that we're very intentional about how we find those people. And yeah, I just loved being able to say that there's products being built in London and that we're kind of working on it, which makes it even more enjoyable. I get to see these people in chat groups and I'm like, oh yeah, you joined a couple of weeks ago and now you're building the metaverse. So that's really cool as well.
It's true, it's London, but across Europe, Middle East, and Africa, like Hannah said. So, if you've got interest in trying or joining a company from a completely different location, you've got those opportunities as well. Okay, thank you so, so much. That was an incredibly interesting conversation. It's not just going to end there. We are going to move to Q&A in just a little bit. But before we do that, final question for the panelists from me. What piece of advice would you have for anybody who's navigating their career at the moment? Or alternatively, I really like this question, what's the best piece of advice you've ever had around navigating your career? I'll go to you first, Rosh.
Oh, God. No, it's a great question. I think the first thing that I wanted to do was just myth bust like tech, because speaking from experience, I honestly never thought that I would end up in a tech company. To me, and to Hannah's point, it was very Silicon Valley and elusive, and you have to, be able to code or do technical things. And my coding skills do not extend beyond MySpace for those who ever dabbled with that, changing my background. So I was like, tech, what? It wasn't even a consideration, right? I was privileged enough that it was a former kind of friend or ex-colleague of mine who was at Meta at the time and who convinced me to kind of go for a role. And I actually left a full-time role to join Meta, then Facebook, as a contractor, and then also lucky enough to get converted. But it was just the kind of, myth busting that I want to do, that it isn't just people who are like super techie. Like, of course, we love the techie people and we appreciate you, Simone, and your team. But, there's sales, there's marketing, there's operations, there's facilities, there's legal. There are so many different teams within Meta and tech companies generally that actually, provided that you have this love and passion for working in a fast-paced environment. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's kind of, oh, what shall I do today? Everything changes every day. And this passion and for innovation and for the technological, is that a word, world, full stop, then tech is actually a space that you should and can seriously consider. And it's completely pivoted my career and the opportunities. Like, you've heard from Hannah, who's made various different internal moves and towards her North Star trajectory. And I like to think that I'm doing the same. And it's these companies, because of all the different departments, that it sets you up for, potentially a very long time. I have never worked in a company for 4 years. I'm normally like every 12 months, what's next? So it's just testament to that. So yeah, I just wanted to take that time to, I don't know whether that was advice or just like, do it if you want to do it. But also, ex-recruiter, I will die a recruiter as well. The biggest advice that I can give anyone going for any role, full stop, whether it's in tech or not, is to tailor your CV to the job description. And I mean literally job description on one window and CV on the other. Like, I think I have about 7 versions of my CV, depending on what I feel like applying for at the time. And I know it's such a simple thing, but having been on the other side of the fence in recruitment and in, Meta and other companies, these are the kind of easier ways to make sure that you're making it very difficult to not be considered if you are literally matching your CV to, the responsibilities that this job that you want to do, that you want to go for. So just my little recruiter tip. But yeah, I'm going to be hanging around after if anyone wants to come say hi.
Brilliant. So we've got just a few minutes left, but we have to go to Q&A. So I'm going to ask, what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received, Hannah and Simone, before we move to Q&A?
Well, I'll try to be short. I think the best advice I have given, it's something that we have heard in a lot of the talks before quite a lot. It's to be courageous of getting what you want, not trying to fit in. A lot of companies have different cultures, will try to have you change the way you are, present your true self. Don't do that. Like I think there is such a scarcity in authenticity today that allowing yourself to be courageous to bring your true self in the workplace, in the connections that you make every day. It's a treasure, and that means also doing the same when you're thinking about your career. Could it be a new job? It could be a promotion. if you want it, you think you deserve it, be your best advocate, right? Be the first one to say like, yes, it's mine, as opposed to ask for permissions or wait for somebody to just pick you up and give you what you want.
Amazing advice, thank you.
I'll be super quick. Go and seek out the information that you need for where it is that you want to go. There is no way that I could have moved roles 3 times at Meta if I hadn't gone and found that information. No one is going to give it to you. And you can get help, but just be proactive, go and seek out all of that information and find something that you're passionate about. And the last thing that I'll say is always remember who you are and why you're there and why you're in the room.
Oof, ending on a mic drop moment there. I'm hearing be courageous. I'm hearing take initiative. Like no one's going to give it to you. Love that. Thank you so much for that advice. So we're going to move over to Q&A now. And we're going to be, I think either the questions will be appearing on the screen or somebody will be reading them out shortly.
Yeah, so a couple of questions. There's lots of mention of how the metaverse should be inclusive and accessible, but how are Meta actively working towards this wider issue?
Making sure that it's inclusive. I feel like we touched on it. I think from a recruitment standpoint, it's making sure that you're casting a wider net, that you're going into kind of all of the different organizations. I won't list them all out, but there are a lot of external partners that we work with, BYP being one. I don't know, Simone, if you'd want to add anything from a technical standpoint, but yeah.
Sure. I mean, there is active work, right? I think the blessing and the curse of building the metaverse from our point of view is that we have a lot of technology and a lot of expertise in moderating content, being assuming that things are happening like in the real world, and then be able to catch things. I know that when unfortunately we don't catch the bad things, it's actually much more serious, right? It's much of a bigger problem. But there is a lot that is actually happening. A lot of the technologies that we build that are helping people, that are bringing people together. And I think a few examples I can bring for my own direct team is, for instance, having an idea of how people are using and creating their own avatars. We don't want people to build clones, right? Virtual clones. We want a uniqueness. We want diversity. And then having a look at how people are using our products to enforce and to add features in products that are encouraging people to, for instance, changing their colors of the hair, as opposed to, brown and black and white, use pink, purple, and green acid. Why not?
Right. And another question is, what key skills do you think are necessary to thrive in a big tech company like Meta?
That's a great question. Do you want to go first and I'll go after you?
Yeah. You need to be fast moving. We've talked about some adjectives like courageous. Meta specifically, we talk about being your authentic self, because when you're being your authentic self, you're going to be doing the best work that you can do. So I would say kind of taking that ownership of, as Hannah said, who you are and not forgetting who you are, like remembering that every single person in the company, no one else has that exact same experience or that exact same lived experience or background, and kind of claiming that in a really autonomy way. I would also say that cross-functional skills is a big thing at Meta. So what we mean by cross-functional is just, rather than, if you're a marketing manager in the marketing team, you're not just working within the marketing ecosystem. You are going to have to be working with the events team, the sales team, the finance team, the legal team. So you have to be able to embody, a flat structure in that way, like non-hierarchical. So you need to be able to build relationships laterally as well as upwards and downwards, and work as part of a collaborative team. Julia, I want to make sure that you've got...
Yeah. I'll add, plus one to all of that. They're all incredibly important skills. And I'd also say, enter any job within the tech industry with a growth mindset. It all moves at such a fast pace, and there's always more to learn. Like, nobody knows everything. And as Simone said earlier, you just have to keep listening, and you have to be open to hearing things and being challenged. And it's about, being challenged in a respectful way and challenging each other respectfully. But that's why it's important to have such diverse perspectives in the room and diverse voices, and being open to listening to those voices. But yeah, the growth mindset for me is the most important one, and staying curious. I think that's a really key skill to help you really set you up for success and thriving in any role within the tech world.
Great. We've got another question. by having avatars not be clones of our real selves, how do we stop phishing, blackfishing in the metaverse?
Simone, I might hand that over to you as our tech expert.
I understand it as in not stealing people's identities, and it's a totally big problem space. I think this is why we actually employ a lot of engineers to build these systems. Uniqueness is part of it, but also the underlying technology that allow people to discern, right? If somebody looks alike and something else, how that is different. There are things in place to make sure that that does not happen. Like I think if you think in a different way, it's a bit like having your Instagram account with the picture of somebody else. It's a combination of technologies that are coming together to allow the fact that this is not a problem, or it's a problem that is solved, right? Having ways to report it, having ways to automatically detect when something like is like that, having ways to avoid the creation in the first place. This is something that particularly touches me because in some of my teams we create what we call the editor, which is the way you edit your avatar and your virtual presence, and so giving ways for people not to be able, right, to create like a clone, that's crucial for sure.
So diversity breeds innovation. What advice do you have for people from non-traditional backgrounds to get into Meta?
I think being a part of a organization like BYP, you'd be really surprised like how many events that we kind of partner with external organizations on, be that kind of an event like this, like the mentorship program I was talking about. We do kind of a lot of panel discussions as well. And I think what people don't know is when you join, sign up and attend an event, you're then in our system in a very compliant way. But essentially what it means is that someone can reach out to you, a recruiter can reach out to you about opportunities, and you're able to be surfaced a lot more kind of efficiently, I guess would be the word, in a very compliant way. So I would encourage you to attend as many of these events as you can. I also think it's really important to get kind of like I go back to the mentorships. If there's people in your own space, right? If you know anyone that works at a tech company and you're going for an interview, get them to refer you. Get them to tell you about the interview process, and just read up on the company, right? We actually have a lot of materials on our career site, on our LinkedIn, on all of our social handles, and just make sure that you're kind of staying up to date. Yeah, there's probably a lot more that I could say, but I'll leave it there. I'm not going to be able to hang around, so please connect with me on LinkedIn, Hannah Showmaid, you saw my name. Ask me any questions, I'll come back to you offline as well.
Brilliant. We just need to wrap up shortly, so Rosh, one more.
No, I just wanted to stress again, again, coming from the recruitment experience at Meta, so I feel like this can transcend across tech. Like, I didn't come from I came from a non-traditional background, I think was the phrasing of the question. Had worked purely in recruitment agencies to start, and then went in-house to clients, and then, tech was my next step. So my biggest thing is to focus on the transferable skills, and it comes back to the job descriptions and carving out what type of, maybe it's not the role that you're doing right now that you want to just replicate in a tech company, but actually carving out your own narrative and your own space to go, what do I want to do, and then think about the transferable skills that exist within that, and then you can start being a little bit more intentional about your job search strategy. And like I said, being on the receiving end of hundreds of applications to job adverts, it is those transferable skills that we're looking for. If a role is focused on e-commerce and marketing, of course that's what a recruiter is going to be keeping their eye out for, and a hiring team is going to be prioritizing seeing those candidates. So just try and carve out your own lane, and don't kind of get too caught up in the fact like tech is this bubble that I can't burst.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And that's a great point on which to end on. As Hannah said, you can find us all on LinkedIn. Please do reach out if you've got any follow-up questions at all. Huge thank you to you all for listening and for being a part of our first in real life panel of the year. So thank you so much. Thank you so much to Meta, but also to BYP for the platform for this conversation. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Julia.
Yeah, thank you, Julia.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you again, Julia, to Simone, Hannah, and Roshana. Please put your hands together one more time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.